Dmitry, welcome to Paper Napkin Wisdom. I am so excited to have you on. When I first did Paper Napkin, I tried to get coordinated with you, but you were so busy and the schedules didn't work up. So I am excited to have you here. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, awesome to see you, man.
So you have a very interesting paper napkin, and we talked about it before starting, and it's essentially blank.
Yes.
Why are you sharing that napkin with me today?
Um, because I am a human just like you and other humans who watching this. And every human is basically trying to find the answer, right? And they all try to come up with different questions with the best question, right? Like to have a good answer, you need to have a good question. And so then you figure out what is the question. And my personal journey led me to the point when all the questions disappeared and the idea of my personal journey disappeared too. Everything disappeared, but everything is still here. It's simply everything just like it always has been. And if we go a little bit away from the abstract, because like most people probably listen to this, like, what the hell is he talking about? What I'm saying is this: no human being has ever lived your life. No human being has been in your shoes. No human being knows what it is to be you. And we're all just fucking monkeys, of course. I'm like, hey, I'm just better way to peel a banana. Look at this, right? Like, oh, I'll show you stuff, how to do achievements. I'll show you how to do great relationships. I'll show you how to raise great kids, or whatever the fuck is like my idea of I'm a good monkey and my wonderful skills. But I want to point to something else, to something different, to the fact that nobody has a clue and we are all in the same boat. So that's
Yeah,
one answer.
and one of the things I think I said to you before we started was I've always appreciated that you approach. I mean, you've accomplished a great deal, and we're going to get into some of those how you've applied this wisdom in through those lessons into where you are now.
Mhm.
However, I mean, you've always approached everything as a student, as an observer, as a what can I learn from the situation, right? I mean, that's my impression of you. Am I wrong?
Maybe I love learning, and I used to be very compulsive about learning. I had to learn more, and I read so many books and listened to podcasts, and then always there was life, and then also explored psychedelics and meditation and whatnot, right? Um, and eventually it dawned on me that like learning is awesome, but there's nothing to learn like at the same time.
Hmm.
Not saying that one is wrong and the other is right, but I'm saying simultaneously is that every life moment is exactly the way it is already. And there might be learning happening, there might be suffering happening. There are moments when you just like fall apart and you scream and you cry. And then later on, you might come up with some idea. Oh, I had those wonderful insights, and things are going to be different. Well, of course, things will be different, but none of your insights will protect you from life because you're not separate from it. You're not distinct from life, and life will keep surprising you. Right? It might miss your ear, or might just hit you right there. You don't know that. Like next moment. Looks like you're frozen. My connection seems to be pretty good, but I just lost you. Hey.
Hey man, I'm not sure what's going on with my PC.
Mm.
It's totally seized up. So give me a second. I'm going to have to restart it and I'll
Okay,
come right back. Okay.
sounds good.
So Dmitry, my impression of you has always been that you are a an active learner, somebody who is a student of the moment. You're open-minded, you're humble, and that's what you bring to things. Am I wrong about that perception?
I mean, that's simply your perception of me, and I do love learning. I've been learning for a long time, and it's been awesome. And I used to be very rigid about what I knew because I thought that what I know is right. And then when people would argue with that, then I would tense up and I would have to convince them that I'm right and that they're wrong and so on. Um, and sometimes I would even like maybe feel like maybe I'm not quite sure, but it was hard to impossible to admit that, right? And then at some point that changed, and I can tell you that I know about a lot of things, so have my ideas and opinions, but they're held lightly and they're no longer the absolute truth, but they simply absolutely my truth of that. And this is how it is. And I'm very confident with that and I'm peaceful with that. And I also know that this is simply nothing more than my personal fantasy based on everything that happened to me so far, me being who I am and so on. And then next moment, it might seem that I have a different perspective on things. And sometimes my perspective, I can see that it did shift. Sometimes it might just seem because the context of the conversation has shifted. And, I'm answering a different question, even though it might sound the same. So that's a somewhat confusing answer to your question.
Yeah, no, but I think that speaks to the blank napkin, right? That speaks to what your share is. It feels like you've let go of a lot of um, the ideology or the pedagogy or whatever whatever rules confined your thinking to be much more flexible and open-minded. Would that
The
be a
idea of
fair?
letting go has been lost too, yeah,
Yeah.
right? Because the idea of letting go again, like it's like here's stuff and here's me, and I'm in control and I'm letting go of stuff and stuff is gone. And I'm saying that this idea is bullshit because that stuff is me and that stuff
Mm.
is a chaotic flow. It's constantly changing. And yes, I have seen all kinds of thoughts in here about I have done it, I let go, I surrendered, now I know, and so on. And then eventually it became very obvious that like, oh wow, that's a wonderful story. But the river is constantly flowing. There's no way to stop it. There's no way to grasp the air. So
There's nothing to grab and there's nothing to let go because the river is
there's
flowing.
no
It's
there's
just
no
happening.
entity separate from the flow that can actually do that.
Yeah.
Even though like at some moments it might feel like stuff is being let go, or some other moments it might feel like there's tension and grabbing onto. Yeah.
That's fascinating. So, let's talk about that mindset and how it might be useful
Mm.
for entrepreneurs, leaders, people who are, in roles in
Mhm.
organizations right now. And you've built some amazing organizations. You've been at the beginning of some really incredible technology. And I joked about this. I was playing with toy cars when you were building early SaaS models that grew into great companies, and multiple times. You've done this several times over and over again. How is that mindset different from then, or is it the same thing? Has it just been an evolution for you?
The mindset has shifted a lot, and it keeps shifting. And it's also very obvious that it's not like I have my mindset and I can change it, but it's more like it's very clear that the mindset here is shifting. I can sense now more like, oh, my emotions are different and I can see the world differently. And now I have some very different ideas. And what I'm saying cannot be useful to anyone else because they cannot take this and then do something about this. But it might resonate, and we're constantly impacted by everything, right? So whether we want it or not, whether we find it useful or not, but everything that happens around us is constantly shifting us. What happens in our bodies, we age, what we ate, how we slept, what kind of music we're listening to, what are the facial expressions of people around us. That's constantly shifting also how everything is perceived and how we act on that. And there's just more lightness now with the way how the world is seen.
Interesting. So let's talk about how that applies to, let's say, current events. You've been very active, very vocal about, you know, about political things and business things that have been happening. And let's pick anywhere. How does this mindset that you have, this flow mindset that you have, apply to these dynamic unfolding events that are, quite large in their scope and
Yeah,
scale?
yeah. It's very clear now that there's unstoppable flow, and whether we talk about politics, I look back at my life and I grew up in the Soviet Union, and then I observed the Soviet Union falling apart, and then I observed a new hungry, monster growing in that place and doing all kinds of crazy things, and then I have also observed many shifts in how entrepreneurship is perceived here. Again, like growing up in the Soviet Union, there was no concept of entrepreneurship at all. And I just kind of randomly fell into that for a bunch of reasons, right? Many people impacted me on that. So, right. So what I'm saying is that there is no longer resistance and grasp into what's happening. What's happening is this fluidity, and I'm still full of opinions and ideas about this. And yeah, this is me.
So in that fluidity, in that, you started off with this idea that, the experiences that we have are our own, right? Like, I mean, the wisdom that you have accumulated is really truly yours. It's for your life journey, for where you are in your situation, and may not be applicable to anybody else because you're not in their human form. I mean, they've got their own humanity, you've got your own.
Mhm.
And in the space of that, in the space of that, I know that you still feel very strongly that there are certain appropriate ways to recognize other humans and other ways that don't. How do you go with the flow? How do you be in flow while still having these strong opinions about, um, again, politics or
Mhm.
business or anything really?
Yeah, it's very obvious to me that all of that stuff that you ask is simply happening, and I'm not doing that, right? I'm not controlling the way I perceive things. And one little example that might illustrate that is maybe a month ago I was doing a 3-day fast, which I occasionally do. And the second day, um, there was a post on Twitter, and there I replied to that, and then I looked at it like, wow, how interesting. Like I can see how my reply is much more aggressive than my typical baseline. And And then I wrote a post about that too. Like, oh yeah, it was just recognition of that, right? And what does it mean? Like, it doesn't mean anything, right? It's just a recognition, like, oh wow, I'm not this guy who has a certain opinion and has to defend it, right? My opinion shifts and changes, and the fact that I was at the point when I was replying to the post, I haven't eaten for 2 days. Clearly, my emotional state was different, and their communication was different, right? And then people like to say, talk about true self. But I'm saying that there is no permanent true self. I'm saying that the true self is the current manifestation based on everything that is at the moment, physical state, your foundation, all of your experience, and so on. And there is a reaction. So the reaction is no longer questioned, right? So there's no longer idea that it has to be controlled, it has to be a certain way. And it might be that there's a reaction, and I look at this and I feel a little bit of cringe, like a little bit of shame, maybe, or whatever it is. And this is perfectly fine too, right? So it's like the reaction was perfectly fine, the original action or whatever. Then my reaction to that, the perfect fine. Every moment is always a perfectly fine moment. The best way this body mind is reacting to what's happening.
That's really it's a really resilient view, I think, because to me, what I hear you say is that you are are striving to be aware of yourself in the presence of whatever's around you,
I'm no
and
longer striving. The idea of striving is gone. That's
striving
really
is gone. Okay, so
is
what would
gone.
be the
The
word that you
idea of
use then?
striving is gone. Yeah,
So what
yeah.
would be the word that you? How would you characterize that?
I mean, you can call it recognition, right?
Recognition.
But not something that's been achieved or can be achieved. It's just like something at some point is like it's obvious,
Hmm.
right?
So you're recognizing who you are, not necessarily who you want to be, not who you were, but who you are in this moment, and just observing it.
No, and it's impossible to understand what I'm talking about because in your description there's still like observer me separate from being observed and whatever. But no, there is a recognition that everything that's happening is always me. And observing is me, happening is me, everything is me. It's kind of like, to give you another little pointer to what I'm talking about is there is this whole spirituality thing, which we can talk about or not, but there are two major types of spirituality. One is like when people strive to become a detached observer, like this is stuff, but I'm awareness or whatever the fuck. And the other one is when people trying to get closer to that. That's kind of tantric approach, but not applied to sexuality, but in general, the
Hmm.
sensation is me. And I'm saying that both of those parts, they basically potentially can end up in the same exact point because there's only me. Observer is me, what is happening is me. So the experience, the experiencer, and the process of experiencing, they're not separate entities, they're just one life. That's the recognition, and it's totally useless because it doesn't change anything.
Hmm.
It's
So
still, yeah.
how would you? I mean, in this state of recognition, and maybe the state is wrong, but in
Yeah,
this
it is wrong, but yeah, no, it's okay.
but
I understand what you're
in
asking. Yeah,
recognition, let's just say
yeah.
in recognition, how would that um, have been useful to you in the
Mhm.
middle of building the businesses? Would it have been
Mhm.
useful to you?
No, not at all. It cannot be useful because
Okay.
it's simply what is, right? It's not like the idea of usefulness is again like the separation. Oh, here's me, here's a recognition, and now apply it, and then my life will get better. Um, and your life will change constantly, right?
Hmm.
You might have children and relationships and building businesses. And it's awesome, right? And subconsciously, for most humans, as we build stuff, as we do stuff, we try to achieve something. Like, there is usually some kind of, in a lot of entrepreneurs, it's at least it's my experience as I talk to some people, and on a very deep level, who are building businesses that eventually they start sensing that it's like they really hope that they will be admired, for example, right? So that they
Hmm.
will fix the world and they will finally get that love and whatever, right? Or some people are really fighting against something, right? And that's the most painful way to build stuff because there's so much anxiety and suffering on that. And for me, it's you know obviously crypto is one area that I'm curious about because my son created Ethereum and whatnot. And this might be one point or one example is that when I look at Bitcoin crowd, it feels like it's very much, or at least some people in the Bitcoin community, for them it's a fight. The government is bad and we're going to fight it. We're in the right, they're in the wrong, and this is the fight. Awesome. And I love a lot of those views, if you will. There is a lot of anarchistic views here too. But then when I look at Ethereum, it's different. Ethereum is not really fighting against stuff, but it's more like, oh, we're building this thing, and here are all of these cool things you can do with this. Here are all of the awesome reasons to do this, and we having fun and whatnot, right? So it's mm, the point is that what I'm making, because I'm trying to, even though it's impossible to make it useful for entrepreneurs, but I'm still trying to do. I'm a fucking limited human, right? And I'm trying to say that whatever you do, you're not doing it for the reasons you think. And when it's very clear that you're simply doing this, then it becomes so much lighter because you're no longer so stuck on like, oh, I have to do this, otherwise the world will come down. But you're just doing this, and why the fuck not? Do it with your utmost passion and energy, um, and also know that you have no idea how it will unfold. Right? You don't know if you will succeed. You don't know if it will bring you this recognition and love that you might be craving and so on. So what? If you're doing this, all that means is that you're doing this.
I like the recognition that the action, it feels like you're saying that you're doing this because you're doing it and for no outcome,
Exactly. Just
no
out of
reason.
silliness and joy.
Yeah, out of the joy for the action, the joy for being
The joy
here.
of being alive. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to recognize, and I know trying to recognize is not the same thing as just recognizing. And but let me play with this a little
Yeah.
bit. So coming back to paper napkin for me
Mhm.
is purely about the joy,
Awesome.
and there isn't really a great reason other than I love this kind of moment. I love having the opportunity to perceive things differently than I would in a conversation that is meaningful.
Beautiful.
Um, is that sort of what you're talking about? Is that close to recognizing the moment? It I'm trying to experience that.
Yeah. I have no idea, right? Because I cannot get inside of you, right? Because
Hmm.
also I know that for myself, a very automatic process, right? We all want to be liked, right? And then one aspect of that is we want to explain things that we do in a way that will be approved by other people,
or
right?
or or appreciated
Yeah, whatever it
or
is, right?
something. Yeah.
Like we are social monkeys, right? So we want to be appreciated and approved by monkeys, and we're very good. Like I look at myself and I see myself quite often. it's very interesting. Like, now it's very obvious, like when stuff happens and then my brain looks at this and then it tries to present it to myself and the world is the most optimistic and positive way. And wow, this is amazing, right? But this is just me, right? And I know that for other people it's very different. And for some people it feels like the world is constantly just crashing down and they're in a constant fight and so on, right? And circumstances change all the time, right? It's our health, our relationships. Like I've dealt with some challenging stuff, intense stuff in the last few years, and so what,
Yeah, I think uh, for me, the let's talk about is there a routine that you follow? Is there uh, a mindfulness practice that you follow? Is there something that you do in the morning to bring yourself into the state of flow and present moment recognition? Or I mean, and I'm sure that
Yeah, yeah,
as a
yeah. No,
practice
no,
it's
that's
become
awesome. Let me
easier.
answer before I forget your question. Yeah. No, there are no more practices. And I do a lot of regular things. I am, as a kid, because of my personal circumstances, I have developed lots of disciplines, and it's been a very powerful tool that gave me a lot. And eventually, it was very obvious also how it messed me up in some really huge ways. And this is with every tool, So discipline is amazing. It's very powerful, and also it's a flip side of the flip side. There is a dark side to that, our
Mm,
inability to sense our blindness to what's unfolding, our ability to sense other people, ourselves, and so on. So uh, it's kind of like, and I also have seen some people who are very sensitive and open, and they don't have discipline, and their life or business is a mess because there's no structure, right? And so what I'm saying is that there is no answer. Every human is just constantly trying to build their own path based on the tools that, for some reason, that have been developed on that particular human, and then they do their best to apply it, and then life will constantly keep throwing stuff at them that will challenge that particular tool eventually. No question about this, and some new answers might be found or not. And sometimes and you've probably seen that too. Like some people just get very rigid and they get stuck. They keep trying to like, I'm a hammer, so everything must be a nail, and they
yeah,
just keep trying harder and harder and harder, and until they die or break.
and I think that for me, and maybe you could describe the difference, but for me, I wonder if there's a difference between the things I do for my own spiritual, mental, and physical hygiene,
Mhm.
um, that are not quite so blindly dogmatic, but they're things that I do
Mhm.
to keep myself clean mentally, physically, and
Mhm.
otherwise. Does
Mhm.
that resonate with your current practice?
Not at all. No, I'm saying that I'm seeing that this human is every moment is doing its best. I meditated for many years, quite a bit for a few years, like a couple hours a day, and then eventually just stopped, and it became obvious that makes no sense to me anymore, this whole idea of meditation. And so what, right? And there was different moment when it made total sense, and now there is different moment when it makes no sense. So there is just a recognition that every moment, like, practices, they they're a little bit, oh, maybe a lot. They're all about living in the future. You preparing yourself for that wonderful future, or difficult future. But you never live in the future. You're here, right here.
Mhm.
So anything that you do is about stuff in the future, possibly, right? But only in your story, because again, you're human being, which is so messy, so complicated, so wonderful, will do its best to deal with this particular moment the way it can. It might be tensing, it might be meditating, it might be crying, it might be stuffing itself with pizza, It's
And
just doing its best.
and it may just be a conversation, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So that present moment, that recognition of being here now
Mhm.
is perhaps an opportunity to open the door to be your best here now. But
Mhm.
it starts with the recognition that this is where I
Mhm.
am, and
Kind
it
of,
doesn't.
right? But here's the thing: you cannot not be your best in this moment. You cannot arrive there because that arrival, that attempt to arrive is already like, you're somewhere
Correct.
else. But
Yeah.
here's this moment. There is already your reaction. Thoughts come, a thought is coming up. You have this emotion. There are some words coming up, right? They are already here. And, there are thoughts about, I will get to this wonderful presence, whatever. But when you feel totally scared and you're doing your best to avoid maybe numbing yourself with alcohol or drugs or sex or whatever is your favorite, maybe work, building business, right? That's an awesome way to escape too for a lot of people, right? So this is your absolute best already.
And sometimes, yeah. I mean, I think building business is a bit about living on fantasy island, right? I mean,
Mhm.
you're creating a universe that you may feel in control of,
Mhm.
right?
Right. Yeah.
And you're saying in Ethereum, and you're contrasting it against the Bitcoin world, right? And you're saying how one is more in that
Fighting
sort of
against, and the other one is just like doing
being,
stuff.
yeah, doing
Yeah.
stuff.
And again, obviously it's a very biased, very imperfect analogy,
Yeah,
but yes.
of course, yes, of course, understood that you've got quite literally a horse in the race in this case because
Yeah.
because of your son. Let's talk about that. So when he is in, I'm sure that he comes to you and you speak about life, you speak about business, you speak about things together.
Mhm.
Um, is it is your state of recognition, this environment that you're in, this present moment space that you're in, is that helpful for you as a father in your relationship with him? Do you think?
I'll give you a long-winded answer, which will be very indirect, but maybe it will resonate a little bit. So there was recently a conference in Brussels, Ethereum conference, big one, Ethereum community conference, and there were a lot of posts about it on the timeline, and a number of people commented that, oh, Vitalik is just like, he doesn't have a limo, he doesn't have a bodyguard, he just travels on trains and whatnot, he arrives here. And then some people were concerned, but he should have, because there's some crime and some people been accosted here and blah blah blah. And then some people reached out to me, Dima, you should tell him that he should have bodyguards. I'm like, you know what? It's on him. The thing is, I can tell him that I'm scared for him, but that's it. That's on me. Nothing more than that, right? And in general, in the way I look at the world these days, for the best way we can support any human, every human in whatever they're dealing with is help them see that this is absolutely perfectly normal to be going through whatever they're going to, right? Like I have uh, one very good friend, actually more than one, like, some friends that I have, sometimes they struggle with, like, for example, suicidal thoughts. And they visited me too. I'm a human. And interestingly, when we suffer and we share that with other people, then quite often people then try to help. No, no, you should not be feeling this, but think about this, think about that. I'm like, sure, thank you. It's all awesome. But this is what's being felt right now, right? So for me, the best way I can support another human being is when they're going through something difficult or tense emotion is not to give them advice what they should do about this, but also, I mean, I'm stupid. I cannot help them see, but if I could help them see that this is absolutely perfectly normal, however challenging that might be, and that connects a little bit to psychedelics, like because I've had a lot of different experiences that I've done on my own, and then like with shamans and in group settings with different sitters, and there are some people who try to impart their view of the world onto you. Like, this is how you should be thinking. This is what's going on, and no, that doesn't resonate. And then there are some people, they're just there for you. Like if you're familiar with 5-MeO, the last time I did a session with this awesome guy that I worked with in the past, back in September last year, and I was handling very difficult breakup. And as the medicine was coming up for me, and I realized like, wow, this is going to be a wild ride. I just asked him to lie down with me on the mattress, and I hugged him, and then I just like fucking cried and screamed for the next whatever it was, 30, 40 minutes, and that's it. Like just having a human right there and hugging him feels like it made the processing that much easier. And on their outset of this, then I laughed for another hour, right? So it's really, this recognition that we're talking about. There is much more freedom now with the emotions. They don't get stuck in a complicated story. Who was the reason for them? And how do I manage them? And who is to blame? Is it me? Is it them? Blah blah blah. But it's like, here's sadness. Okay. And it looks like we're going to cry. Okay, we're crying. Oh, right now it looks like we're not able to cry. We're not crying. It looks like right now we're trying to distract ourselves with like maybe food or something else. Yeah, right on.
I think I'm understanding the power of recognition. I'm not calling it a state, not calling it a place, not calling it even a mindset, but the power of recognition is that it feels as if you are simply being who you are in this moment without a without a filter or a need to control how I'm going to feel
Yes,
about it.
right. Without the
Without
complex story on top of that.
Yeah, there's no
Yes.
complicated story
Yeah.
about how you got here.
Mhm.
Dmitry, entrepreneur, innovator. I
Yeah.
have to impart some wisdom so that people will
Yeah.
like me tomorrow, and people will tell me how special I am. You
Mhm.
are free from that historical encumbrance. You are not that it isn't part of you. I'm not saying that it isn't part of you. It obviously is, and you're also free from projecting some desired outcome. You're just being here. You're
Yeah.
without without a story on top of that.
Yeah.
And has that made it easier for you? You talked about supporting friends, right? People coming to you with their story and
Mhm.
they're challenged. Has it made it easier or harder for you to support people you care about in that situation? Like, talking about Vitalik, for example, as well. I mean, he comes to you. Are you?
Mhm. Yeah.
Do you feel? Um, Again, not without encumbering yourself on the
Yeah, yeah.
a
I
bad
think
point
I'm
outcome
getting
of
you.
it.
Let me try to answer. Yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah.
it's very simple. It's so much easier because without my story, also their story is kind of irrelevant. And they can tell their story, and sometimes I can be an asshole and tell them to not tell me their story. And I'm kind of joking, but I'm not joking, right? Because and some people might take that as me not feeling their pain. I'm fucking feeling their pain, but I don't need their story. It's more like, okay, here we are. What can I do? Can I give you a hug? Can I give you some tea? What else? Like, can we brainstorm some ideas or whatever it is? And I might not be able to help you, and I don't have to. I know that I will do my best. Like, and this applies to everyone in my life. And my youngest daughter, a year and a bit ago, a year and a half ago, was struggling quite a bit with stuff, and it was scared because she was going, and she's a teenager and was going through seemingly some very depressive states, and being very isolated after COVID and whatnot, and it was scary, and she was missing a lot of school, and I was fucking scared, right? And reacting in different ways, and scared like, oh, what might happen to her? And here's the thing, right? Like, anything might happen to her, anything, and it's not in my control, and doesn't mean that I'll just now chill and say, oh, it's not in my control. I'll just meditate. You know what? I'll keep doing everything the fuck that I can come up with, right? Sometimes maybe scream at her, sometimes
In the moment.
right
In the
in
moment.
the moment. Yeah, for
yeah.
sure,
You're
for
in the
sure.
moment. You're going to do
In the moment.
everything
Absolutely.
in the moment.
Yeah.
Without without the story on either
Yeah.
side of it.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you've cut the strings to try to control an outcome.
I've
And
lost there the story that I can. Yeah.
You've lost
The
the
idea
story.
of control is lost. Yes.
Yeah.
But think that's the fucking magic.
Yeah, but
It's
that's the
all
magic.
still
Because you're
happening.
right here, right now.
And
you
everything
can
is still
be
happening.
all of it. You can be all of it if you don't have those stories. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, you
No.
already are all of it. And stories are not wrong at all. They come up. Why not? Right? Because the idea of not having stories means that you will be in a better state as yet another story.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a story right here. Why the fuck not? It's
You
fascinating.
said this a few times, and I think I missed it. You said you're already all of it.
Yeah.
You said that more than once, and I
Right.
haven't caught
Yes.
on that.
Yeah.
There's a I mean,
So it's not,
we sort of
so it's
glossed
not
over the
like I
spirituality
can
of it.
tell you, Govin, right? Here's me, Dim, I have this stuff, and if you do this, then you will get there. No, I'm saying something absolutely different. I'm saying you already are it, I'm already it, and this is it. This is it. Right? But it is not a fixed thing, Like you're this, and I used to have more hair. My hair used to be not so gray, and it is different every moment. My body is different every moment. My kids and my business, my money, my health. I mean, it's not mine. That's the idea, right? I'm saying mine because that's the convention we use. But this is the fluidity of life.
Yeah. And I think we sort of glossed over the spirituality side of it, but it sounds that you've recognized you've recognized a greater sense of spirit in yourself over time by being present. Is that um, accurate? Were you as a
No, that's absolutely inaccurate,
were you
right? But
applying
it's
this
a way to
previously?
describe it, right? Because when there's this idea that you can realize this and you can find it, and then you can
Yeah.
find it in building this awesome business or having all of these amazing experiences or relationships or sex or whatever is your preferred method of this, or maybe spirituality. You do a lot of these practices, and then you will be realized that you're one with
No,
the
but it's already
spirit.
there, right?
I'm saying fuck all of this shit. This is it. Like this is it. Like like here's this, your current state, your current emotions, your current thoughts, and your current reaction to this beautiful conversation, this beautiful human, looking in your eyes. This is here. It's here. Like it's not something to be realized.
Yeah, and it's not something that's passive either. It's not something that you're
No, of
just
course not. It's not like,
it's something active.
oh,
It's not like it's not this.
it's exactly what it already is.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
It might look like, okay, sure, why not? Might look like very active
Yeah, and
resistance
I
or
think that's the
action.
thing I might have misunderstood when you first started talking about it, Dmitry. I think I may
Mhm.
have misunderstood when you were talking about the recognition of the moment as
Mhm.
being a passive, so who the fuck cares kind of thing.
Right, right,
You're
right, right.
saying
Because
the
you're thinking
absolute
that you're
opposite.
separate from the moment. Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. I'm
It's
saying the
the
opposite.
absolute opposite.
Yeah.
It is a
Yes.
recognition of the moment. So I'm all in right here. I'm already
I
all
am
in.
this moment. I am
I
this
am the
moment.
whole
Yeah.
moment.
Yes.
And it's up to me to recognize that. And um,
No,
uh,
it's not.
it's not up to
It's
me.
not.
Well, I'm, yes,
You already are this moment. Yeah. Yeah.
already are this
That's kind
moment.
of like it's like,
It's a circle.
the
It's a
mind
circle.
cannot get it because the mind is like still trying to like, how do I understand it? And when I understand it, then that will be how it
It
is.
will be
But I'm
there,
saying,
but there's no there.
right, right. Yeah, exactly. It's here. It's here.
It's
It's
already
like,
here.
the confusion of what the hell is he talking about? That is that. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's exciting. So let me ask you. Let me end this sort of where I began,
Mhm.
uh, and that is, why did you agree to join me on Paper Napkin today?
I have no idea. I simply did, right?
Mhm.
And people sometimes ask me, and then it doesn't feel right, and sometimes it feels right, right? And I can give you, I'm sure that I can come up with a complex story. Human minds are awesome at that, right? Because like they look back and like, oh, this is where things are, and now I have a story because my dad did this, my mom did this, I did this, and they did this, like, and it's
Well, that was
there, and
cool
then
that you
it's
said it
yeah,
felt
yeah,
right. It felt
yeah,
right, and
yeah.
that was
That's it. So
that's the reason.
simple. So
That's a very
simple.
simple answer.
Yeah.
It felt right.
Yeah.
I love that. And uh, I, I I know we could keep on talking because this is a very difficult thing for me to get my head around, and I think for anybody to. I, but I'm grateful for you sharing this time with me. I am absolutely um, interested in learning more about this, and I'm going to spend some time thinking about how I understand where to start and where to end, and maybe not where to start, but just where to be. And but it was powerful. Dima, thank you so much.
Thank you. It was very awesome to talk to you.